I was very focused on obstetric violence at the beginning because it was the thing that I felt very attached to because it had happened to me. And that was surprisingly among like aktar things that got backlash more than when I talked about the hymen.
Really?
For real.
Wow.
From doctors, yeah. That was the one time in our history where there was an actual threat of us getting sued, of me being arrested because of public opinion. So there was a huge smear campaign over Twitter and Facebook from doctors, actually, from med students who were super angry at me and like, who is this woman? She's not a doctor. She has no right to talk about health aslan. It just was really an example of how doctors or many doctors see that they're the only ones who have the right to talk about very common information that anyone can find, and that they actually intend to always gatekeep this information.
Welcome everybody to Sage Takes Time. I'm Elisa.
And I'm Amira.
And today we're joined by the amazing Nour Emam. We're so happy to have her, but before we get started on today's episode, I just want to remind you to turn on those notifications to make sure that you don't miss any upcoming episodes of Sage Takes Time or any of the other cool content that Amina puts out. Hi, Nour.
Hi.
Welcome to our home.
It's a lovely home.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just admiring the art.
Yeah, we feel the energy of all of these wonderful female artists, all local here. I wanted to first of all, just recognize how wild it is that I feel like I've known you for years, or even maybe the better part of the last 10 years, because
we've been on this journey somehow together since Mother Being came to be, right?
Yeah.
In 2020.
Yeah. Just some very interesting parallels. And when we pivoted into really focusing on storytelling, was around the same time that these voices of the region were coming up online and talking about the things that weren't talked about publicly. Yeah. So much was haram wa aib wa heki. And I think there's been a few platforms and people that have been owning the aib.
Yeah.
You know, and taking it on and completely dismantling that fear. And you're one of those voices. We were so excited when you first started, and it was such a radical thing. It echoed even in Dubai, by the way, where I was living in the UAE, and that was something where people in the UAE wished that they had that kind of a voice locally, but still there was still that mindset of it's a bit too taboo to bring up.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Ana Nour Emam. I am the co-founder and president of Daleela by Mother Being. I'm also a mother of two beautiful daughters. Daleela by Mother Being is a women's health app and also social media platforms across different platforms. And we talk about all things related to women's health, reproductive health, sexual health, everything holistically.
What was that switch for you that made you take your work to the public sphere?
Well, I don't think there was a particular switch. I think for me, I've always been the kind of person who liked doing things that scared me.
Yeah.
So this can go back to when I was in school, performing at a very young age, having concerts in larger stages as a 14-year-old, singing with a band of 40-year-old jazz musicians. My parents were always really supportive of that. Mm-hmm. But I think the turning point for me when I started doing things that really scared me was in college, last year of college, I decided to completely shave my hair off and document it. So I turned it into a documentary. I was trying to explore why I was so afraid of losing the hair, even though I know that it grows back. And it was a very interesting experience. But from that point on, every time I get that feeling of I'm scared of talking about this thing, there comes a millisecond where I'm just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. And then I press publish, or I recorded this video and I'm worried. And I remember my husband at the beginning of Mother Being, you don't need to go there. Let's just stick to pregnancy. You don't need to push it that much. I'm but people need to hear about this. People need to know about this. And I just press post, and once it's out there, it's out there. Khalas. Like you learn to like kind of sit back and see what's happening and like what people are saying and how people are responding. And sometimes the responses were very scary, very negative, very harsh, and sometimes very positive. And over time, you just learn to focus on the positive and kind of ignore the backlash, because obviously
there's going to be a lot of
there's backlash. Yeah,
still,
for sure.
What were some of the early pieces of content that you remember doing? Like, what were the topics and what did you feel like you wanted to say in that space that you didn't feel like was being said?
I was very focused on obstetric violence at the beginning, because it was the thing that I felt very attached to, because it had happened to me. And that was surprisingly among like aktar like things that got backlash more than when I talked about the hymen. For real.
wow.
From doctors. Yeah, there was like, when I started really talking about the practices that are very common in Egypt, the way doctors coerce women into having unnecessary C-sections and that kind of stuff, that was the one time in our history where there was an actual threat of us getting sued, of me being arrested because of public opinion. So there was a huge smear campaign over Twitter and Facebook from doctors, actually, from med students who were super angry at me and like, who is this woman? She's not a doctor. She has no right to talk about health aslan. It just was really an example of how doctors, or many doctors, see that they're the only ones who have the right to talk about very common information that anyone can find, and that they actually intend to always gatekeep this information. And once it was coming out that you can't coerce a woman who is still at the early like 9 months, like 4 weeks until she has birth, usually a lot of doctors would be like, oh, your pelvis is too small, you can't have a baby vaginally. Although medically that's not accurate. They were really pissed off.
That's so interesting, because given the other things that I've seen you talk about and remembering the early content that drew me to your page, I would think that it would be the other topics, like the hymen, like all of the other things.
Well, the hymen is controversial till this very day, but
or virginity, like الحاجات دي اللي هو debunking those myths. That to me sounded scarier than like what you would say about obstetric violence, which is like research-based and factual. Like people know this information.
And by the way, a global issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that surprising, because always sometimes when you attack industries or spaces that are usually male-dominated.
Exactly.
And male-dominated historically for a reason to keep out women, you know, the idea of obstetrics being this medicinal practice that knows what's right and what's correct, whereas doulas and midwives in the past used to be the ones who primarily helped women give birth, all of a sudden getting shunned globally. Like, you can understand that they're like, don't tell our secrets, don't.
Exactly. Because it's a multi-million-dollar business.
And at the time where you were practicing doula also, or is that something? Yeah. So also that wasn't like.
Which made it even worse. I'm like, what is this woman doing inside the like the OR? Like, get her out of there. So I get it.
Yeah. And interesting that also your role as a doula came with this innate amount of advocacy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm seeing now, as you explained your younger self in the performance space, being comfortable with attention and working with audiences, and then at the same time, you transitioning into a work that is immediate advocacy for an individual, that those two combined kind of created this incredible platform that you've now built of advocacy and impact, with the unique positioning of not being afraid to speak out to the public at the same time.
I've always been a bit afraid, honestly. Like, people think I'm not afraid, but the fear is there. And there's always the like, oh, I hope this goes well. But it's also kind of like, speaking the truth really helps you jump off that like edge.
Yeah.
When you know it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, when you know this is truth, women need to know this. And over time, obviously, there were things that we had to start really filtering out. Obviously, back in the day, we were very vocal about certain topics. We were very uncensored in a way, like super in your face. But over time, we realized that although being super controversial is great, but you isolate many people who have hunger for this knowledge, but this confrontation feels too much for them. And so over time, we started really like refining the language we use and sometimes filtering out the topics. And I remember like 2 years ago, a friend of mine was talking to me about, we used to talk openly about masturbation, like exploring your pleasure, da 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 da. And that used to be a very controversial topic because of like social, religious, like a lot of factors. But this one time, my friend was like, so it's great that you're doing what you're doing. And scientifically, yes, everything you're saying makes sense. But is this the hill you want to die on? Is the masturbation hill the hill you want to die on?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Not the kind of question you would expect to get in your career.
I know, right? But it's true, because she was like, I get what you're doing, but like pick and choose what you would like, if shit hits the fan and you're being questioned at some point in time by authorities, by whatever, choose what you would be very comfortable defending versus would you really want to be like someone pulling the plug on mother being altogether because you advocated for masturbation? And to me, it was like, okay, I need to like reassess what we talk about and how we talk about things. And there are ways to talk about pleasure and to talk about these things without being explicit about the how.
This is like the part that comes with the editorial and content strategy, and I think we really relate to this.
I'm sure, yeah.
There's so many things that in an ideal world with no restrictions and we don't have to think about all of these things that we usually have to think about, there are so many topics and ways that we would discuss certain things much more openly than what we end up having to do, which is like finesse and tiptoe this very thin line and come about it in like indirectly and then maybe talk about something, like being subtle and also being bold is a very tricky space so that you don't alienate the audience. I noticed that shift as an audience member. I noticed that shift, and in the beginning when you were talking about that and so many other very important things that weren't being talked about, for me as like on the media side and as Amina and stuff, it was like, oh my God, thank God. I would have been, to be totally honest, too afraid to talk about things like that. And I was so happy that there are other people pushing those boundaries like in their own way so that you created this big, big space that didn't exist before. So that was very important. And it's interesting to hear you say that within that, even you've had to kind of like re-strategize and rethink.
I think we wouldn't have been able to grow as big as we are today if we hadn't done this assessment 2.5 years ago. We would have been popular, but we wouldn't have been able to reach the millions and millions that we're able to reach today.
Also important to note that you do, for people that don't know, that you do content in Arabic.
Yes,
exclusively. This is like, when we do content in English, it's such a big space that we can play in. Maybe we know it's not like a mass audience, but when you do Arabic content, what is it like to find those terms and talk about those things and engage with that audience?
It's the hardest thing in the world. Arabic is such a beautiful language, but it's also so big and loaded and like difficult to say. And some words, especially when it comes to body and health and sexuality, trying to find the words, because like when you talk in general or when you hear people talk using slang or whatever, it's usually curse words that are associated with the body.
Mothers specifically.
Yes, mother. And then they carry with them unfortunate like vulgarity.
Exactly.
So there's this connotation that you can't strip away from the word. It's not that the context makes it vulgar, it's actually the word itself.
Exactly. So trying to like find other words or like really normalize using the scientific words, even though they're not used, was, I think, difficult for me at the beginning. Like I remember one time I was in an interview and they were asking me about like, how do you talk so like freely and fluidly and just say the words عادي and فرج وبصر, that kind of stuff. And I told them like, who told you it's so fluid? لا بالعكس, like I had to, for weeks and weeks and weeks, sit in front of the mirror and just like go بصر 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 بصر. until it got normal to say it, because
Even for yourself.
of course, because I'm not used to saying it. Like, I'll say clitoris because it's easier or it's less confrontational. And I think the language was such an important exercise for me personally to accept my body and me as a person, to be able to use my mother tongue in these topics, because a lot of us who are comfortable with English will tend to gravitate towards English simply because there's a distance
Yes,
between...
especially in those topics, with those
Exactly.
words especially.
Like, you would never communicate with your partner, you know, like in Arabic, and say the things that it feels easier, unfortunately, to say it in English. For having to practice this with myself and also with my daughter, like, she knows the terms in English, but she also knows them in Arabic. And that was very important to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Just for context, how old is your daughter? Because you've been like, this part of you, of your advocacy is that we teach kids from when they're toddlers to use the right words.
so now I have a 6-year-old and an almost 7-month-old.
Wow.
Girls.
Wow.
Yeah, mom of 2 girls. Very happy.
Yeah.
Mabruk. And you've been
Wow.
talking to her, your oldest daughter, from like...
Oh yeah,
within,
since
like,
she was like learning to like stand.
naming things the way they are.
Yeah.
Knowing, yeah.
'Cause, like,
Why do you
she-
think that's important?
My oldest is what we call a Velcro baby, so she was attached to the hip, probably until now. Like, if she could get away with it, she'd still be attached. So she was following me around everywhere at home, and even if I had to use the bathroom, like if I was on my period, she would be there. And that was, I think, the first time we ever like discussed body things. Was when I was changing a pad, and she was like, "Mama, Mama,
You're bleeding.
yeah, she couldn't even speak like full sentences, but she was worried about me, and then I had to explain like, no, it's fine وده period وده ما اعرفش ايه بيحصل عشان يبقى عندي baby في بطني مامي baby لا ما فيش baby كده. And then bit by bit, when she got older, she kept asking the same like in repetition, and I kept just like answering in a way that was age appropriate. Obviously today she's 6, so she's in school now, and she's asking like, what is a period? Like, what if you don't want to have babies? Like, why do I need to get my period every month if I don't want to have... So she's starting to ask, you know, like complex questions.
I would love to opt out of that
Yeah, good
subscription
question,
service.
honestly.
You know, if I don't need to.
If I don't want to have babies, why do I need to get it every month? Which makes sense.
That's so true.
But it's so important to me for her to have been raised normalizing, asking these questions, and seeing me undress and stuff. For me, I didn't grow up in this kind of like environment at all. Like, not conservative, but like I would have never been able to see my mom undress. And so like the adult woman body was a very mysterious thing to me. And I remember as a kid, like even seeing my aunt breastfeed and stuff, it was very like, which shouldn't be the case because it's so normal. But because we didn't see it growing up, it felt like automatically there was something wrong about it. But with my daughter, now my daughters, it was always important to me for them to see me comfortable in my skin. And if she asks a question, I answer very frankly. And also really noticing that even if I have issues with my body image, this is something she will never, ever, ever, ever hear me talk about, because it affects her relationship with her body, even though it's not really about her, it's about me, but still. It's super important for me for her to be able to stay safe, to be able to communicate, to feel like she can always communicate about these parts openly with her father and I. And I think that sets her up to become a more confident woman, comfortable in her own skin, able to communicate what she wants, able to understand pleasure when the time comes, that kind of stuff.
I feel like it also keeps people connected to the bodies that they're in. You know, when we're working with little kids, what's the songs that you're teaching them are like heads, shoulders, knees, toes, nose, eyes, mouth. You know, you're pointing to all of the things on a body for them to do it, but then you're completely ignoring like 20% of their body.
Yes,
The torso.
Or you're using,
no, تيجي like عند السرة from the belly button until here.
Yeah.
This place like doesn't exist. Like I always joke
Straight to the
around and
knees.
tell my husband, I feel like when we grew up as kids and even as teenagers, I was like a walking torso.
Yeah.
You know, like this part was so off limits.
Yes.
So like many women, including myself, have never held a mirror and looked at themselves down there. And so, yeah, so like floating torsos is how I envision us growing up in this region.
It's so true. It communicates, and then we just quiet it down without naming things. You can't really address or like connect with it point blank. And if you're not seeing that, you know what I mean? You're then thinking, oh, well, I'm just putting this whole region together. It's going to be like, and they use a little cutesy word or something, like your aunt is going to be like boo-boo or tulu or tutu, tutu, tutu.
Exactly. You know, like, it's like all one thing.
It's all one genre.
Well, can you tell us about, for people that don't know, what is mother being? What was it and what has it become within the space of women's health, reproductive health, sexual health? Give us some context كده إنه what was missing and what were you looking to offer?
So Mother Being initially started as an educational platform for reproductive and sexual health. From day one, I was teaching courses online on menstrual health, on birth and advocacy, on sex ed. So that was like from day one. We had the courses, they were staples. They ran on a monthly basis for years. And we had women from all around the world join. And for the longest time, that was the core, like the education and also being able to speak or create free content that's accessible for everyone.
That's because this information like does not exist.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it's either in English and from a very Western lens, or is in very complex Arabic, medical, not even. So you can't do much with it as a normal person trying to navigate this. I really wanted to find solutions that could scale and reach wider audiences. And I quickly realized that teaching the course every single month was not scalable, because if I got sick, bye-bye, khalas. And as the company grew and the team grew, we started pre-recording the courses, having them on demand so that women could buy them and watch them at their own pace. We're a VC-backed company, which is something that a normal audience would not know anything about this side of the company. We're a team of 25 people. Also, something people wouldn't know, they think it's just me. They literally still think I'm the one answering DMs.
Well, it started that way for so long. And it was just you. And that's so beautiful that you've been able to hold on to that.
But it's also exhausting, because it's we're so much more than that.
Yes, of course.
And over time, we really wanted to build a product that women could use, because we've seen all the data come in over the years from questions about women's health in general, so infections and discharge and STIs and all of these problems, and the inaccessibility of healthcare for these women was so apparent. And it wasn't just in Egypt, it was everywhere. Women didn't feel comfortable going to a gynecologist. They didn't feel comfortable talking about their sexual experiences, or there was a lot of shame associated with that. And so we did a lot of experimentation, and we opened a clinic in Maadi. And
really?
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, we had.
How long was that?
We had the clinic for a year and a bit, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful clinic. And it was really about the experience for patients. That was the vision for me. Obviously, medicine, okay, we have great doctors who were patient-centric, who understood what it means to really listen to the patient and not gaslight them and not any of that. But the experience itself was really important for us. And we actually saw a spike in women coming for STI testing at the clinic, more than any other clinic. A lot of women were coming to get HPV vaccines at the clinic. And actually, the supplier of the HPV vaccine said, we were the #1 clinic that was actually using up all the HPV vaccines. And they were so happy about it. But obviously, with clinics, there comes a lot of operational headaches. Being able to guarantee the quality of the healthcare providers as you scale was very difficult. Being able to reach an audience outside of Egypt. So, the clinic was local, but we were doing online consultations all over the world, was proving to be tricky when we had to also grow as a company. You're nodding.
I'm
You're
like-
nodding like.
I'm like, I know. I had my stint in the VC space, and I think
Yeah.
once you take investment specifically from the venture world,
Yeah.
these buzzwords and expectations like scaling quickly, exponential growth, right, is expected, and them seeing their return on investment, it's diametrically opposed to like the natural process of things sometimes, and it can really actually work against the slow growth that might have been needed for a clinic that involves patients and healthcare providers on site, and the experience also.
For sure.
It wasn't just like a digital platform that was going to be able to grow quickly, but it requires like the physical experience of every single person that walks into those doors to be streamlined and unified and like consistent. Yeah, I feel you. I can imagine that was very difficult.
It was a difficult decision to make when we shut down the clinic. But honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Like, the clinic taught us so much about healthcare, and it showed us what was possible in terms of making healthcare accessible, and truly accessible with what it means. Like, you can access it from your phone. You don't need to go and commute to a clinic and wait and sit with a doctor and just have spent 3 hours of your day just to get a quick consultation. It also helped us because we've built a lot of tech surrounding like the management system of the clinic, that all of this culminated into Daleela today, which is an all-in-one women's health app, launched in August, and it's
August of 2024.
August of 2024, yeah. And it's honestly everything I ever wished to have in one thing, place in your pocket. So Dalila's not ChatGPT. She's taught the cultural context and the lived experience of women in the region, because she was fed thousands and thousands of data points over the years that we had gathered from women asking questions, from the way they speak, from the way they type. She can understand Franco, she can understand all the different dialects from the region, and she understands the barriers of certain topics when asked. She understands the issues that come with your first time, and the issues with the hymen, and like all the things, everything that we've collected
she
over
knows
the
all
years.
this. That sounds like a big feat to like accomplish.
It's huge. So we launched in August 2024. Today, she's answered over 600,000 questions.
Wow.
So we're averaging around 5,000 questions a day answered by Daleela. And it's a free feature on the app. And people use it day in, day out. Like, they use her to plan how to have difficult conversations with my husband. They ask her about if my period is late and came yom kaza or kaza, like, should I worry? What should I do if 1, 2, 3? All of that. So that's like the heart of the app. She's what moves all the other features. And then we have the medical diagnostics feature, which is honestly a groundbreaking feature. I urge you all to try it. You don't need to go to a doctor anymore for many, many, many of the issues that we face as women, because we found through the clinic actually that 70% of the cases coming in didn't need to come in at all, Aslan.
Can you give us an example of something that you might have usually gone to?
يعني مثلا yeast infections, super common. UTIs, super common. Do I really need to be seen by the doctor? No. The doctor actually needs to ask me a few questions and eliminate certain things and give you the prescription. So we're like, okay, so we can use the AI model that we've built for this, along with all our doctors who are working with us on the back end of the dashboard. And instead of spending 30 to 40 minutes in a consultation, the doctor is able to diagnose you in 3 minutes. Just because we've done all the legwork, we've taken all your medical history, all your symptoms, all of that, and we give the doctor the final report, and the doctor just checks if it's medically accurate and sends you the prescription, and you can...
But does this mean that women would have to self-report those symptoms?
No, we ask a series of questions.
Very targeted.
Very targeted. So the first question is, انت بتشتكي من إيه in your own words, which is how doctors will always also diagnose you. They need to hear the patient's complaint without multiple choice. And based on that answer, we start extracting okay, so how long has it been? Does it look like this? Does it feel like this? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now we have infections and issues down there. We have fertility and ovulation. That's something that you can get done, and you start tracking your fertility through the app. We have birth control, so you can get your birth control prescribed to you at home, and very soon we're also rolling out dermatological issues relating to hormone health. So like if you have a weird growth, or if you have hair growing on your chin and you want to get a diagnosis and maybe try a medication, you just take a picture and the doctor will send you that. And very soon we're rolling out the period tracker. So like all of this is Daleela, and the whole vision was that I want women to not need to have multiple apps.
Yeah.
Like you have your period tracker in that, and we analyze your data, and it's always visible to the doctor. So when and if you need a prescription, or when and if you need a diagnosis, we're able to see your entire health data in one place and give you something that's really accurate and tailored to you.
Wow.
I'm super curious to ask you about this like wild convergence of like you with your background and what you were doing before and how you started Mother Being and women's health and that space, and then AI, tech and AI, like what the fuck? I don't even know what I want to ask, but it's like, how are you managing this? Like you're not a techie as far as I know, and you weren't.
Yeah.
You've gathered all of this data and information throughout the years of content and answering DMs and then the clinic. How did that all come together? Like, what has it been like to utilize AI and to learn about it as you're the CEO, right?
Well, I'm currently president. I changed the... We kind of had a little role change, but Mother Being, or like Daleela, is not just me. I have two other co-founders. Ahmed Abu Hashim is the CTO, so he's the genius behind all of the tech stuff. And Yusuf Al-Sama' is currently CEO, and he's the business brain, I would say. And I'm the vision and people, and give people what they need.
You're also like the direct connect to the community that they're servicing.
Yes.
You have serviced that community in your non-AI but very like involved way.
Like
and
one-on-one.
One-on-one
For
direct.
sure.
You're the original Daleela,
Yes.
you know, helper.
That was the whole vision. Like even the CTO joining, I remember like I used to tell Yusuf, AI. He's like, we barely have like a Shopify website. What are you talking about? Like, but Yusuf, AI, if we can like replicate me and clone me in the way that I answer, and make this accessible to all women. He's like, Nour, let's just get our Shopify website out. What are you talking about? And then like fast forward a year and a half later, we have our CTO joined us, and we started believing that, oh, actually we can do this. Oh, why don't we just like take this Excel sheet with like 5,000 questions and answers and feed it there and then try this out, and then it just happened.
Yeah. You could probably feed it all of your old video responses.
You can feed it everything
content,
and anything, yeah.
You have that. That's why it was such a quick turnaround also. How quickly it's been able to be just adopted by mainstream public.
By everyone.
By everybody. So now it's not as intimidating as it would have been. You don't have to do the market education that you would have had to do in the past. And the fact that you spent the better part of the last 5 years doing all of the legwork to prep your AI so you're not starting from scratch. Like it's just such a wonderful convergence is the great word.
Yeah.
Like.
And at this time specifically, because I mean, everyone is talking about AI and trying to be like constructively critique it or bash it altogether and be very afraid of it. And there's a lot of conversations around the biases, the inherent biases that exist within AI because of the ways and the models are built, and specifically regarding women and specifically regarding women of color. And then with Arabic, like there's so many layers of that you've managed to like get ahead of the game. Mabruk, it's amazing. But also, where is it now and where do you see it developing? Like if you can talk a little bit about I guess, a very positive effect of AI and how it's been able to like kickstart this and make it a much faster process than it would have been like 5 years ago, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
The vision is to have all the features rolled out in the next 2 months. So the period tracker is the final piece of the puzzle. And after that, we go into improving and improving and improving. The AI model itself now, because of things like you're seeing a lot of AI models coming up every week, something improves over the other, and you have like the DeepSeek and the Marafshe and all that stuff. So it actually needs a dedicated team just focused on what's the better model to be using in our layers. So it's not, we didn't build the model from scratch. It's multiple layers of different AI models that do things better than others. So like Gemini, for instance, the language part is so much better than ChatGPT, but ChatGPT can get you a lot of the, or like fact check the scientific information. And then we have our layer of the database that's there that teaches both models the tone and the language. So now like Daleela, if you ask her, ازيك يا دليلة عاملة ايه? She'll be like, ازيك يا روح قلبي عاملة ايه يا حبيبتي? والله بجد. And we see that women, like we have on the dashboard, in order to like track the quality of the answers, we're able to like see the questions and the conversations happening in a way that's encrypted. But also we're seeing that women are talking to Delila like خالته دليلة. معلش هستأذنك بس أخش الحمام وارجع تاني. Or she falls asleep and wakes up the next morning and she's like أنا آسفة أنا نمت على روحي. أنتي لسه موجودة كده. Which is sad.
It breaks my heart.
It's sad, but it's amazing. But it's also really heartbreaking to see that there are a lot of very lonely people who are finding this comfort in being able to ask all of these questions and talk openly. But also we're seeing women use Daleela in all the crazy ways of like, one person was like planning with Daleela a way to like escape her parents and go to Saudi. And then she's like, remember when I told you a week ago, because she recalls your history. So she becomes smarter with you as the user. She's like, yeah, I remember. And we're like, Daleela, what are you doing?
Delila, no.
Daleela, no. It's like, أيوة يا حبيبتي أنا فاكرة لما كنا بنقول كذا 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 تحبي أشوف لك معرفش إيه عايزين نشوف تذاكر طيارات وبتاع اللي هو no, this is not what. But people are using her in the weirdest ways.
But this is like the broad definition and spectrum of women's health. If you can
mental, physical,
emotional,
if you can
like
everything.
Within this context define for us what does women's health mean to you as Nour and as Daleela, as a company. Now, given this very unique example, that's like a mental health and life choice thing. What is the broad spectrum of women's health to you?
It's really everything, like you were just saying. It's reproductive health, sexual health. As I mentioned, we're also going into skin and hair. Although I was very opposed to this at the beginning, I was like, no, we're not doing skin and hair. And Michael, I don't know, because I felt like it would automatically be like cosmetic stuff. Mm-hmm. And until like the team was like, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna like talk about the things that bother women. So like acne, hormonal acne, and hair growth, and hair loss, and the stuff that really affects you as a person. So I was like, okay, I can go with that.
Yes.
And nutrition is a very big part of it, and body image, and weight management. And although also I was opposed to that at the beginning, simply because I was just really focused on reproductive health for the longest time, allowing myself to branch out into the wider world of women's health was difficult for me personally. But when I saw that women were naturally using, I'd say the chat, for instance, for multiple things, it was very clear that we couldn't confine it to just reproductive health or sexual health. Like we needed to be able to be more expansive and offer more. Mental health is something that I think is extremely important. However, we haven't really experimented with that yet because it's a thing on its own. Yeah. Looking at the woman in a way that's holistic, with the period tracker that is going to have cycle syncing at its core. It's like really helping you learn how to navigate life around your cycle, which is something I feel like a lot of period trackers, they do it, but like they don't do it in a way that's useful to you.
At all.
It's like, oh, you're ovulating, you're fertile, great, okay,
They just started adding like, oh, you're in your early luteal phase. But they don't tell you like,
what do I do?
What to expect, what do I do, what should I eat, what's actually, they'll just be like, you might be feeling tired today.
Oh, great,
and a bit irritable. I'm like, that is obvious and it doesn't help me.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck with your day.
Yeah, good luck.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
I used to get, bombarded with like pitches for femtech.
Yes.
Because I was a woman.
Of course.
Who was an investment. So I would just get femtech. But the femtech wasn't like actually servicing the community. It was kind of like slight improvements on existing products, or something that was just very simple, like a period tracker, but that wasn't necessarily unique between markets and players. What you're describing is what, when we talk about like bringing feminism to the world and using technology to kind of further equality and access, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. You've now used the existing technology to create a space that was very much needed to service a community that should be serviced, which is just women, like 50% of the population, with core elements of their life that are otherwise completely ignored or hidden behind these gatekeeping barriers and financial paywalls and things like that you otherwise just can't. And you're making it accessible, and you're making it like regionally relevant. So again, yeah, you're currently training it on these regional voices and questions. Does it do dialects? Like, as a Lebanese person, can I just go and instead of saying like "Zayk, عاملة إيه," can I be like
today
"Hi حبيبتي, شو عم
you
تعمل?"
can't. Today you can talk to her in whatever dialect you want. She will respond in Egyptian.
Okay.
But in the next update, she'll be responding to whatever, like however you're speaking to her, she'll speak back to you.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing. That's really
just
inspiring.
like, do you know, we're like so hyped about this.
I'm so here for it.
You know how great this is? It's really amazing. And in your work in the last 5 years, what have you seen that has like improved, that you're like, oh, thank God we don't have to talk about this thing or anymore? Or like, at least we made some good steps in this specific topic or space. Are there things that you readily think of as like, yes, this has improved definitely. Still needs work, but في أحسن يعني تحسننا شوية.
I think overall the conversation around women's bodies is more acceptable today than it was pre-COVID, I'll say. Yani, there's a light bulb that like lit up in many, many women's minds that it's okay to have these conversations with friends, with partners, with whoever. I'd say the problems are still the same. Yani, our number one asked question is the hymen. It's still the hymen. It will forever be the hymen. It's yani, how I did 1, 2, 3. Is my hymen still intact? If I get married, will he know that can I reconstruct my hymen? How deep is my hymen from my vaginal opening? Can I see it with a mirror? There's an obsession with the hymen, no matter how often we talk about it. I'll give you a little insight. This is our fail-safe topic when engagement on social media slumps and we want to like kick it into high gear. We pull the hymen card.
Aywa, Rizma, take notes.
We pull the hymen card because it will always, no matter how long we've been talking about the hymen, we've been talking about the hymen for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's still relevant.
You got to break out the hymen.
Yeah, breakthrough.
Or breakthrough بالضبط. The conversations are more there and it's not as taboo anymore. بس في حاجات كتيرة قوي that are still ingrained. Virginity and hymen is a huge وسواس.
Because this is where like society and your upbringing and shoya religion and the culture and the language, everything comes in and creates a mess.
Yeah. I remember my aunt when I was like 13 and I got my period and I used my first tampon at the time, not knowing, by the way, anything about what we do know today about the terrible, terrible things that tampons can do to your health and what they have in them. But obviously that was 20-something years ago. So, but the eyes, like when she found out that I'd used one, like the hopelessness in her, like...
It's like you're ruined, خلاص.
Like, oh, like just destroyed.
Yeah.
Destroyed. Not like my innocence was destroyed, but like...
No, but just you.
Everything, like all my potential for my future and everything that I had within me and all my purity and my hopes for marriage and relationships.
It's out the window.
And success, it's just gone. And I was looking at her, I was like... I just went to like a pool party and came, like, it's not that serious. And she was crying and I'm going to tell your father. And I'm like, and what is that it's not going to change anything. And then I remember already having learned the fact that you can go horse riding and just things happen, yani. That it doesn't, you know, that, and I was educating her And she was maybe 65 at the time or 60, and she was just like, she had never heard these things, although she had been a nurse, like a licensed nurse in the medical field.
Doesn't matter.
Totally clueless to this idea. And it's crazy to think that 25 years later or whatever, that is still very much at the core.
Yes. Oh, yes.
No, you had to change the activities of the registered entity of the company so that you can provide medical advice and diagnostics. What did that entail?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had to do initially when we had the clinic was that we needed to change our company activity and what it was licensed under. And we needed to have doctors within the commercial register of the company because we were working with doctors and employing doctors. And that's something that is really important to me for people to know. And we're trying to highlight that more on social media, that it's not just me, because people are like, you're not a doctor. Well, I'm not doing any of this diagnostic stuff. We're showcasing the doctors who are on the dashboards, looking at your cases and following up with you. And we want to increase that more so that people are aware that they're being seen by reputable, licensed healthcare providers.
That's amazing. And you're making it super affordable for people by comparison, like within the market, which I think is incredible. Like you're just basically undercutting the existing market and breaking through those gates.
It's really important for us to know from what we've learned when we had the clinic that there was so much of the costs of like the overhead was going to maintaining the space and the staff, and all of this could be cut out and really focusing on just being able to diagnose. For the fact that the doctor now is able to spend 3 minutes per case versus 30, 40 minutes per case means that they can see multiple cases. يعني احنا in the first 6 weeks of launching the diagnostics feature, and we had only one of the categories launched, the infections and discharge. We saw 1,200 cases in 6 weeks. By comparison, 1 month, a good month in our clinic, like we'd be lucky if we saw 150 patients.
Wow.
That would be really good.
Wow.
That would be a good month. So you can see the number, it's like crazy.
Yeah.
For being able to diagnose and treat thousands of patients, and we have a dedicated team focused on patient satisfaction. So we review and we reach out to the patient and we follow up a few weeks later how it went and if they're satisfied, and we really make sure that the patient satisfaction score never goes under 4.5. And that's something that rarely happens in normal clinics. Like
course.
no one cares if you're satisfied or not. Like you're just take your prescription, bye. For all of these things, we're trying to make healthcare accessible and for the modern day woman. I don't have time to commute an hour back and forth and wait for an hour to be seen by a doctor for 10 minutes to probably have a shitty experience, most likely, to be put in an uncomfortable position, literally, when they technically don't really need to see me. Like they could just take my data.
Yeah.
For being able to offer this to women, for me, is groundbreaking.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. On the bigger scale of things, when you zoom out, it will inevitably improve the medical system as a whole. If you can cut through the noise and through how many patients the doctor needs to see in person and really reserve that time to patients who truly need to be seen in person versus they don't need to come to the clinic. And so you're really giving, the doctor is able to provide better service to the patients who really need to be seen. They have more time to do this work properly versus being overwhelmed. لأنه هنا, especially here in Egypt, the medical industry is overburdened. Doctors are overburdened because it's mostly private sector. Well, public sector is even more overburdened.
Just the wait time in clinics for any type of field is a killer. Like it could make you I don't want to go. Like neglect your own medical needs.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Wow. This is really exciting, I think, inspiring for all of us here. This is the type of stuff I've just been waiting to see really come in to the world with the advancements in technology. And I'm so proud that it's something that's coming out of our region and it's coming from our community.
Yeah.
And being led by a real one.
A real person.
Like a genuine, authentic person who has always had impact and advocacy at like the heart of the work that you've done and you've been attracted to. So I love that this is the journey that you've gone on and that this is the step you're in now. And I'm like so excited to see how that.
I think also encourage people to check out the interview you did with Nour 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
It was in my very first office.
Very first office. And the kind of conversation we were having then versus what you're saying now, like as a founder, as a woman, as a leader.
Yeah.
In this women's health space we're so proud, like really, really astounding, Yanifa. I think it's amazing to show that trajectory for people that are interested to look at the two and see like the difference and what you've been able to build. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And maybe serve as an inspiration for them also to kind of see how much can happen in the span of 4 to 5 years.
And for entrepreneurs, like how much you have to pivot and tweak your product.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. But it's like, it's just, and if you have an entrepreneurial mind, you can see a lot of that in the conversation with VCs and growth and pivoting and stuff. It's also important for people to learn. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. So to finish up the episode, we have a tradition where we're asking our guests 3 questions.
Okay.
What is bad advice that women just need to like ignore?
That when you first get married, you're going to be having sex every single day.
Okay. Just ignore that. Totally.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, the next question. What is a social norm that just needs to die already?
Yeah, obviously, like the hymen needs to die. خلاص.
Yeah, the diamond.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Kill the hymen.
And the last one is, what is something that you hope your future self has figured out?
I think having gotten to a point in time in the future where I fully accept myself and my body fully, like without the need to change anything.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and beautiful for you, of all people, and advocates of body, to say that openly. I think that's really amazing. You always show bravery in everything that you do. And that's like always been my biggest takeaway of you is I admire you so much for the bravery. Because as you said at the beginning, the fear is there sometimes still.
Yeah.
But bravery is overcoming the fears that we have, not afraid.
Exactly.
Just overcoming those daily. So thank you for being the advocate and the inspiration that you are, Nour.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us also. This has been Sage Takes Time. Please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, share, comment, save if you can. And don't forget to also join as a member on YouTube or a subscriber over on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us go a long way. We are an independent media company and we do rely on your support to make beautiful content like this. Let us know in the comments or in the review what you thought of this episode, if we should have Nour back, and if you want us to keep breaking down. The judgment is there. If you want us to break down any more topics, I'd love to hear from you guys. And until next time, Sage Takes Time.